Hey, welcome back to week 36 of Foundation 52. This is the third and final video this week. We're talking about annual goal setting, and this one is on making pivots. And here, if 2020 taught us anything, it's that sometimes you have to pivot, right? Things happen, they're out of your control, and you got to figure out how to move forward. So you make a pivot, or in some cases you don't and you no longer have a business, but you guys are smarter than that. That's why you're in Foundation 52. So you know that sometimes you have to make pivots. And here's our guidance for pivots with respect to annual goal planning. If you got to make a pivot to survive, make the pivot. If you're going to make a pivot because there's a huge opportunity that presented itself that wasn't there when you were doing your annual goal setting, and now that you've done a little bit of environmental scanning or you've done some competitive analysis, you realize there's a pivot that you could make and it's going to really benefit your business, make the pivot. Make the pivot. And then review the current state of your goals. After this pivot has been made, is there any way, how does this pivot fit into your goals? If it doesn't fit in at all, that's okay. What you need to figure out is, are we still executing against our remaining goals, or are those goals kind of on pause until we get through this pivot or through this current situation or this current economic climate, whatever it is, right? So basically, your annual goals in terms of some of the things you're executing against may become secondary to a pivot if the survival of your business is at stake. So don't don't spend too much time worrying about your annual goals when it comes to if you're going to make a pivot. You want to make the pivot, focus on that, and then circle back to your goals and see where things stand. Corey talks a lot about pivots in week 23. So if you need to, go refresh yourself on that and pay, and get some learning in there. But in all honesty, I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about how pivots impact your annual goals, because in general, when you're making a pivot because something unforeseen happened, and you're really just trying to make sure that your business can either stay afloat or capitalize on a current condition. And that is usually higher priority than any planning that you'd already done. Ideally, you could just sort of set aside the plans, your annual plans, and come back to them at a later date. Maybe it's the next year, maybe it's after you've, unpivoted, which, we like to say, sometimes you have to unpivot after you've pivoted, but either way, you'll come back to it. It's just a matter of when you come back to it, and that's after you're done with the pivot. So that is it for week 36, annual goal setting, all three videos. There's some downloads for you, and we really hope that you enjoyed this session. We look forward to seeing you next week. And as always, if y'all have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out, and don't forget about the monthly live Q&A where Corey and I answer all of your questions and give you as much information as we possibly can to help you with your small business. So thanks and enjoy your week.